Hi everyone, Sandman here. This video is brought to you by a donation from John, and here's what he has to say. Hello Sandman, I saw your video on trans women being potentially Nawalts. I would like your feedback on trans men, male to female transsexuals, being good mates for men. Could that be the best of both worlds? Guys that are either masculine friends but actually have a warm love box to satisfy your sexual desires. Perhaps even having biological children with them. It may actually be a nice compromise. There are even a few female to male transsexuals that like guys. I've dated a few as I'm actually a gay male. Many still have a feminist mindset which is sickening and confounding considering how long they've actually been physically men. They are a special breed that experience and complain the prejudice against men but still harp on male privilege. That female in-group loyalty is a tough nut to crack. I know you'll probably have some interesting insights on this issue with regards to them being potential Nawalts, as I bookended your other tranny video as well. Just as an aside, I've actually been following your videos religiously for over a year now. I've seen my mother, aunts, and sisters systematically belittle, manipulate, and pillage from my dad and the other men in their lives for resources. They incur God, logic, and loyalty whenever it fits their goals and reject it whenever it does not. I have red pill rage, especially when these selfish women think I should actually subsidize my mother who spends to no end so close to retirement, and give little thought to leaving me nothing more than enough to cremate her. I accept this as a woman's nature. I let out my rage with snide comments but maintain enough civility to keep family members harmonious. Well John, thanks for your donation as well as your topic request, and I must say that I never thought I'd be covering this particular issue. Given your situation, it actually sounds like a good one on the surface. However, there are still plenty of pitfalls. Firstly, if you have kids with him or her, whatever they want to identify with, the odds are pretty high that the courts will side with the prick with no dick, and you're more than likely to lose access to your own kids. If the mother looks like Buck Angel, then your children will be raised by a woman that looks more like a motorcycle bandit. Who knows, they might even make your life into a reality television show called Trannies of Anarchy. I know I'm just being cheesy, but that man with the vagina is bound to get a yeast infection up there from time to time. I've also always wondered what a pregnant man looks like when he's riding around on a hog. Sexual attraction is also really interesting. It has very little to do with the vagina or the cock and the balls. As I'm sure you understand, John, it has a lot more to do with masculinity and femininity. People tend to be attracted to either one or the other. That's why men interested in transgendered women still consider themselves heterosexual, because to them it's not actually about the genitals, but it's more about the behavior and the wrapper. I find it interesting that in this day and age we have men that look passable or almost passable as women, and we have biological women almost passable as men. What's really interesting about this is that I was actually listening to a transgendered woman discussing this, and she said that this is a unique situation, because it's something that never exists in nature. I'm afraid that we're only in the opening innings of this gender-fluid revolution where people hormonally and surgically alter their bodies to create all kinds of turn-ons for other people. When I was in university, it was great having a few masculine female lesbian students because they were actually pulling their weight on the assignments and didn't nag me and my classmates. It was pretty good. As for you, John, from the perspective of personality, you could potentially luck out with the she-man. You've been lucky enough to find what you were looking for in the past, and I'm sure that you're going to find it again. Before this current age of gynocentrism, there were actually other arrangements that gay males made in life that also worked. In the past, finding a woman that was a lesbian and that wouldn't nag you and would instead allow you to focus on things outside of wanting sex and affection was probably the best that a gay man could find. They had to marry, so the best option was to marry women uninterested in sex. I'm sure there were probably many relationships between gay males and lesbian women before the 20th century. They understood that they could actually have children together, they had their arrangement, and built a life and family together, probably as partners than anything else. If I was in that situation, I probably would have done the same thing. I also sometimes wonder what it would be like dating or having kids with a somewhat masculine man. I'm kind of attracted to Sarah and Tegan, the Canadian lesbian music duo. I like the one that looks slightly more feminine, and they're prolific, constantly producing new content every couple of months. So I always get new singles to enjoy and listen to. It's also really brave on a woman's part putting up with another woman's bullshit well into her mid-30s like Sarah and Tegan apparently do. Then again, it could all just be an act to sell records to the dyke market. The question you answered for me, John, is will a female-to-male transgender person be attracted to other men? As you said, the answer is yes in your particular case. I guess that's a woman with so-called gender dysphoria that's actually into dudes. I don't know how you actually found partners like that in the past, and I've never actually met anyone like that before. As a woman, she could have attracted as many men as she wanted, so it's not about being desperate for male attention. It probably has more to do with identity. Back when I was in my early 20s, I worked in television for the first gay and lesbian television show here in Canada. I still couldn't stand looking at the women with birds' nests under their arms and Sasquatch legs. They also had more body hair than I did back then. But today with hormones, it's probably even more extreme. John, this partner you're looking for, I'm assuming would probably also be on some sort of hormone therapy. So I'm assuming that you'd want to have a child with them while they still weren't taking male hormones. If you do that, then the person you have a child with might not actually be the same person mentally after having kids and then switching over to the male drugs. Suddenly they might be more aggressive and not as attracted to you in the same ways, and that could ruin your chances for a long-term, successful relationship as well as life. You must have heard the argument before that if a woman dates or marries a man while she's still on birth control pills, it makes her attractive to less masculine guys. They remind her more of her brother. But then she finally gets off the pill and tries to have a kid with you, and she's absolutely disgusted by the way that you look and smell, and it was actually Milo Yiannopoulos talking about this on Breitbart in an article a while back. Also, if you partner up with a female-to-male transsexual, this biological woman is going to change hormonally when she reaches menopause. There's a lot of questions that I don't really believe anyone has the answers to, except perhaps a man that's been living with a female-to-male transgendered person their entire life. I know that guys like that are probably even hard to find in a place like San Francisco, where the sexual revolution started. So that being said, if you choose to go through with what you want to do, John, your life will most likely be an experiment and an adventure, and you'll have no clue how it's going to end. With regards to this idea that there are women out there trying to change their appearance into a male one and then enter gay relationships with men is very similar to the transgendered women that have girlfriends. Sometimes it makes me wonder if there is actually something called gender dysphoria, or if it's just people choosing the sex that they're more comfortable being or identifying with. That's the danger in all this trans acceptance going on out there, that we're actually seeing children or very young teens identifying with the opposite sex, and in the end this isn't going to be very good because for transgendered people, the rates of suicide and depression are much higher than the general population. You could be choosing to start a family with someone that could potentially have all kinds of identity issues, and do you feel comfortable potentially passing down some of those issues down to your kids? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but recently I did a video about feminists taking over the Canadian government, and Kathleen Wynne, the lesbian premier of Ontario, dumped her husband and ran off with her best female friend, and this act ended up confusing her teenage son into questioning his own sexuality. Perhaps his mother's coming out gave him the courage to come out sooner, but he said himself that this was all confusing for him. Perhaps instead of finding a fully masculinized woman, you can find one that's somewhere in between, and someone that you're actually attracted to enough to want to actually give the hot beef injection to. After all, masculinity and femininity are not black and white, but they tend to slide on a scale. That's probably the only useful thing that I learned in my gender studies course. The gender, or more specifically an individual's behavior, can be more masculine or feminine, or essentially gender fluid. Today, however, instead of a sliding scale, the political correctness police are attempting to classify things to a ridiculous level, and an extreme, with an article I actually put in the description discussing how there are now 58 gender types on Facebook. Can someone please explain to me how people can identify as bi gender or both male and female at the same time? Maybe from the waist down she's a hot woman with hot legs, while at the same time from the waist up she's a bodybuilder and thinks of herself as male. I know it sounds ridiculous, but at this point, I don't even know how to classify this female-to-male transgendered gay individual that you're basically looking to start a life with, John. Also, John, maybe there's something you could explain to everyone listening. Why is it that some closeted gay males go after Asian women? Back when I was in high school, many of us suspected that certain guys were gay, and although they never came out, they decided to marry and have kids with Asian women. Perhaps you could just explain that in the comments section why it happens, and perhaps that's a solution that might also work as well. Maybe there are even Asian lesbian women that can't come out to their families, and perhaps having a kid with an Asian lesbian might also allow you to keep your lifestyle more socially acceptable. I know you probably don't care too much about that, but will someone at least think of the children? Of course, I'm just kidding, but I'd like to see what your thoughts are on this. I'm sure that throughout most of history, men that were gay probably found the most masculine women they could find, and I've run into women with male facial characteristics, and I'd swear to you that they were actually men. Just like there are tons of gay males out there that look 100% like women when they dress in drag, and ironically, they actually look better than most of the women out there because they're actually acting the part better than I believe that most of the women do. Sometimes because gender can be fluid, fluid, some gay males can be attracted to masculine women, and some lesbian women might be attracted to feminine men. Stranger things have happened. I'm sure that that's how people used to cope when being gay was considered illegal. Recently, I heard Milo Yiannopoulos say that he would actually sleep with a woman if she was Latin, like a Latin tranny. So attraction, just like appearance, can be more feminine or masculine. That, I believe, is really a personal preference. The science also says that sometimes people's sexual attraction or orientation changes, but science doesn't seem to have an answer for that. I wish you the best of luck in your situation that you find yourself in, John, but just keep in mind that just because a female to male transgendered person is into you today and wants to have a family with you doesn't mean the relationship is bulletproof. Keep all those hormonal things that I mentioned earlier in the back of your mind. Anyways, that's all I've got to say, John. Just be careful if you do get together with such a person and potentially have a custody battle if you have a kid. You could actually be fighting for custody in the courts against a biker in a dress trying to take away your kids. I would also be potentially worried about any possible issues that your children might have with their own gender identity. You must admit that would be a bit of an unusual situation. Also, please don't forget to smash the like button like that dude's vagina, and also please check out the MGTOW mystery link in the description below. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the pricks with no dicks away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.